Got it. So, welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 49, verses 24 through to 28. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Svayam Kilvisham Adhaya Taischakto Nartako Vida Asiddharto Vishatyandam Sarvadharma Vimukhastama. Abandoned by his so-called dependents, ignorant of the actual goal of life, indifferent to his real identity, and having failed to fulfill his purpose, the foolish soul enters the blindness of hell, taking his sinful reactions with him. The speaker here is Akrura. Purport. It is sadly ironic that materialistic persons who labor so assiduously to accumulate insurance, security, property, and family enter the darkest hell, equipped with nothing but the painful reactions of their sins. On the other hand, those who cultivate Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, while apparently neglecting to accumulate property, a large family, and so on, enter the next life enriched with many spiritual assets and thus enjoy the deep pleasures of the soul. Text 25, also Akrura speaking. Tasma lokam imam rajan swapnamaya manoratam vikshyayam yatmanatmanam samasanto bhava prabho. Therefore, O king, looking upon this world as a dream, a magician's illusion, or a flight of fancy, please control your mind with intelligence and become equipoised and peaceful, my lord. Text 26. So this is Dhritarashtra's response to Akrura. Dhritarashtra uvacha yatabhadati kalyanim vacham dhana pate bhavan tatanaya natripyami martya prapya yatamritam. Dhritarashtra said, O master of charity, I can never be satiated while hearing your auspicious words. Indeed, I am like a mortal who has obtained the nectar of the gods. Purport. In the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Dhritarashtra was in fact proud and felt he already knew everything Akrura was speaking, but to maintain diplomatic gravity, he spoke as a saintly gentleman. Text 27. Tatapi sundrita somya Hridina stiyate chale putranu raga vishame vidyut sodamaniyata. Even so, gentle Akrura, because my unsteady heart is prejudiced by affection for my sons, these pleasing words of yours cannot remain fixed there, just as lightning cannot remain fixed in a cloud. It's interesting, he admits his prejudice. Last verse, text 28. Ishvarasya vidim kono vidhunotyanyata puman mumir bharava taraya yovatirno yadokule. Who can defy the injunctions of the Supreme Lord, who has now descended in the Yadu dynasty to diminish the earth's burden? Purport. Naturally, we would like to ask Dhritarashtra, if you know all this, why don't you behave properly? Of course, this is exactly Dhritarashtra's point. He feels that since events have already been set in motion, he is helpless to change them. In fact, events have been set in motion by his attachment and sinful propensities, and therefore he should have taken responsibility for his own acts. Krishna clearly states in the Bhagavad Gita 5:15, Nadate kasyachit papam. The Supreme Lord does not accept responsibility for anyone's sinful activities. It is a dangerous policy to claim that we are acting improperly because of destiny or fate. We should take up Krishna consciousness seriously and create an auspicious future for ourselves and our associates. Finally, one may argue that after all, Dhritarashtra is involved in the Lord's pastimes and is actually his eternal associate. In answer to this, we may say that the Lord's pastimes are not only entertaining but also didactic, and the lesson here is that Dhritarashtra should have acted properly. That is what the Lord wanted to teach. Dhritarashtra claims that Krishna came to relieve the burden of the earth, but the earth's burden is precisely the improper behavior of its inhabitants. So let us take the lesson the Lord wants to teach here and be instructed for our benefit. So that concludes the section of verses that we are discussing today as a group. We could reflect on these. First, we discussed words of counsel, good counsel given by the saintly. Well, maybe he's saintly also, he's diplomatic, the transcendental diplomat, Akrura. And then we have the response of Dhritarashtra. So 2 verses spoken by Akrura and 3 verses spoken by Dhritarashtra. Akrura is on another diplomatic mission. Why do we say another? Because there's another famous diplomatic mission that we were discussing some months ago, if you remember. That is when he was...
Uddhava?
I beg your pardon?
Was that Uddhava visiting the gopis on Krishna's behalf?
So, yeah, okay, yeah. So Uddhava was also on a diplomatic mission. Even prior to that, Akrura was sent on a diplomatic mission to bring Krishna from Vrindavan. And so, yes, Uddhava plays a role as a Yadu diplomat. So does Akrura. We see here he's on this diplomatic mission. But earlier, Kamsa had also engaged him in a diplomatic mission. So he has that role in the Yadu court. What is his mission? Krishna sent him to investigate Hastinapur, to go to Hastinapur and investigate, make inquiries about the position of the Pandavas and their mother, Kunti. Kunti is a Yadu princess. She had married into the Kuru family. And so there is some relationship between these families, between these kings. It goes back much further back to the time of Yadu and Yayati and Kuru, but that's a different story. So Akrura has been sent, and he's been to Hastinapur. He's been in Hastinapur for a few months. He's been speaking to important people to understand the position of the Pandavas who lost their father and are being raised by their mother, Kunti, the Yadu princess. And so he's spoken to Vidura, for example, he's spoken to Kunti, and he's fulfilled Krishna's question, or he has an answer to Krishna's question as to whether the Pandavas are being treated well. And that is, he's learned that they're not. They're being treated badly by Dhritarashtra, by Duryodhana. Dhritarashtra condoning Duryodhana and his brothers undertaking all different types of efforts to assassinate the Pandavas and to cause them harm. And so prior to leaving Hastinapur, Akrura has decided to seek audience with the king, Dhritarashtra, and give him wise counsel. And so that's what he's doing here. He's highlighting to Dhritarashtra that he must behave as a king. He must be impartial and non-prejudicial, particularly as it relates to his sons and his nephews. He reminds Dhritarashtra that he has come to the throne because his brother, Pandu, died untimely. And the rightful inheritors, the Pandavas, were still too young to take the throne. And so Akrura, he's become quite philosophical in his instructions. He instructs him first about the duties of kings and the importance of impartiality. But with the verses we've discussed today, he's become more philosophical. He's telling Dhritarashtra that what's the point of acting wrongly, acting badly, to get property and opportunity for your family members. You try to accumulate, you spend your life engaged in sinful activity for the benefit of your family members, but when you die, you will not be able to take any of that property with you. What you will take with you are the sinful reactions. So Akrura is trying to shake up Dhritarashtra here, like, wake him up. What are you doing? Not only, you will take the sinful reactions. Your family won't take the sinful reactions. You will. They won't care. You will be gone. You will be suffering. They won't be able to help you with that. You will be the one to face that alone, those sinful reactions. And so he says, the verse 24, he says, abandoned by so-called dependents, ignorant of the actual goal of life, indifferent to their real duty, and having failed to fulfill their purpose, the foolish soul enters the blindness of hell, taking their sinful reactions with them. And all that you had, verse 25, it would be like a dream, a magician's illusion. It's gone. You don't have it. You can't carry it. It's unavailable to you. He says to Dhritarashtra, therefore, control your mind. Control your mind. The uncontrolled mind is always after sense gratification, wants to possess things, to have things, to take things, to enjoy things. Control your mind with your intelligence. Intelligence can help us understand the consequences of fulfilling the mind's urges, acting on the mind's whims. With intelligence, we can understand if I delay, if I withhold, if I focus, I can get more sense gratification. So that's one way that the intelligence, still corrupted intelligence, but it can help us control the senses. Or the mind or the intelligence can say, if you do this, you will enjoy in the short term, but in the long term, you will suffer. So behind or higher level than manas is buddhi, intelligence. And then, of course, even higher than that is a deeper level than that is working at ahankara or false ego. Because manas wants, the corrupted intelligence will say, well, let's delay the gratification and we can get even more. So we're still not at, we're still acting in ignorance. But if we come to the level of ahankara, where I'm thinking I'm a man or a woman or young or old or American, Australian, or a Wall Street executive or a diplomat or whatever these designations we have, that's a deeper root to where the intelligence will think our values lie. unraveling that means we come to the point of Atman, of soul. So Akrura is trying to take Dhritarashtra there. He's trying to bring him back from the mental platform, at least to Buddhi, but even better, Ahankara, and then Atman, self. So there's an important lesson for us. Dhritarashtra's being warned by Akrura, but we are being warned. Bhagavatam is spoken to Parikshit Maharaj, but Parikshit Maharaj is there on our behalf to hear that we can all be benefited. Arjuna, he plays that role in relation to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He becomes bewildered so that Krishna will speak for our benefit. And now his grandson is also bewildered so that Sukadeva will speak for our, not bewildered, but cursed. So that Sukadeva will speak for our benefit. And so here, Akrura is warning us against ignorance and selfishness, leading to sinful actions, ignorance of our life's real purpose, neglecting our real duties, acting selfishly, pursuing wealth and our material desires, ultimately leading to disappointment and negative consequences. And so we take this in the inverse then. We should devote ourselves to fulfilling responsibilities, lead to a more meaningful, fulfilling life. We should act with wisdom and integrity. We should act from the perspective of self-realization, the spiritual platform, and avoid the pitfalls of selfishness and ignorance. So how does Dhritarashtra react to this? We're given his response in 3 verses, 26 to 28. He says, he admits, yes, I am partial. I am acting inappropriately. Says, "Oh, benevolent Akrura, I'm grateful for your good counsel. Your good words are like the amrita that is drunk by the demigods, the nectar of immortality. And I am a mortal who's been given this nectar." So he expresses appreciation to Akrura. Vishwanath Chakravarti tells us that now Dhritarashtra is being diplomatic. The next verse is very revealing and very, very instructive. 27. Tatapi sundrita somya hridina stiyate chale putranuraga vishame vidyut sauma soda maniyata. Even so, gentle Akrura, because of my unsteady heart, which is prejudiced by affection for my sons, these pleasing words of yours cannot remain fixed there, just like lightning cannot remain fixed in a cloud. These words of Dhritarashtra are really striking. I've heard what you said, and it rings true, and it is the nectar it is the nectar of immortality. Drinking this will make me immortal, but I can't. Because my mind is agitated, my mind is corrupted, this nectar will stay in my mind as long as lightning remains in a cloud. I find that analogy really, really powerful. I remember years ago sitting in a class, Bhagavatam class, and seeing that verse 27 on the board. And it went very deep into my consciousness. Dhritarashtra, the blind king, figuratively, but also, literally, but also figuratively. He's received good guidance and he recognizes it as good guidance. But he replies that because of attachment, it can only remain in my mind as long as a lightning flash can remain in a cloud. Illumination for a second. For 1 second, when you're in the dark, when you're in a rainy night in the forest where there are no street lights, for 1 second, everything lights up and you can see. You try to catch it all, get your sense of direction and your bearings, because you know it won't last. It'll be gone. in the next second. And so Dhritarashtra says, for 1 second, everything you say gives illumination. I can understand my position. I can understand my future. I can understand my current behavior and how it is wrong. I can understand what I should do. Everything is clear. But it only lasts a second because of my heart, which is prejudiced, biased towards my sons. It is clouding my judgment, and I am unable to choose properly. So this stayed in my mind, and then many years later, I was in a situation where I was given good advice, but I was attached to a certain outcome. And I replied, remembering this verse, I said, although your advice is good and right, because of attachment, it only stays in my mind as long as a lightning flash remains in a cloud. I'm finding it very difficult to apply it. I understood, but attachment is so strong that in that moment, I felt Dhritarashtra's situation. It can only remain as long as lightning remains. The attachment comes in and impels, as Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is it, Krishna, that impels us to act, even though we know it's wrong, even though we know it's against our best interest, even though we know the outcome will be counterproductive, but we do it anyway. What causes this? And Krishna famously replies, Kamesha Krodesha Rajaguna Samudbhava. It is lust only, Arjuna, the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So that prejudice is based on lust. The prejudice that Dhritarashtra speaks of, it is lust, it is attachment. So maybe you're familiar with this verse and analogy, or maybe you're familiar with a situation where you have good knowledge. I think we all have good knowledge. We have received the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from his messenger, emissary, Gauravani Pracharine. Srila Prabhupada has brought that Gauravani. We have the knowledge. We have the illumination. But do we apply? Do we apply it? So Dhritarashtra's giving an excuse. This is also very instructive, very interesting. He says, well, it's Krishna's arrangement. Must be Krishna's desire. It only stays in my mind as long the illumination stays in my mind only as long as a lightning flash remains in a cloud. It must be Krishna's will for me to choose wrong and engage in sinful activity. This must be Krishna's will. Otherwise, why am I doing it? Nothing moves, not even a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanction. So this is a cop-out, and we must call it out and recognize it for what it is. Krishna, he gives, yes, free will, minute free will to the jiva soul. We get to make choices, but so yes, Krishna is controlling things, but he gives us minute free will. He wants us to choose him. We can choose Maya, we can choose him. We can be Bahirmukha, we can turn our face away from Krishna, or we can be Sumukha. We can see the beauty that is Krishna. That is our choice. And so saying that it is Krishna's arrangement or Krishna's will is not correct. This is an excuse that Dhritarashtra is making. At any moment, we can choose Krishna and we can call out to Krishna. Krishna, please save me. Krishna, please help me to choose you. For so many long years, I have been choosing wrong. I've been choosing Maya in this material nature. But today, I'm calling out to you and asking you to help me choose right. Give me the strength to turn and see your face. Give me the will that I will choose your devotional service. That is a choice we have. Even when our mind is clouded, even when we are attached and our hearts are prejudiced, we can always call out to Krishna, and Krishna is ready to help. Krishna doesn't want us to suffer. Krishna doesn't want us to choose Maya. He wants us to choose him, but he doesn't impose himself. And so Dhritarashtra is wrong with this reply. It is an excuse rather than a supported philosophical argument that he gives. So we can reflect on this. We can reflect on the struggle with attachment, appreciate Akrura's counsel, recognize the wisdom in it, recognize the ongoing battle that many of us face, balancing our worldly attachments and our spiritual understanding. Recognizing our material attachments, that's the first step towards spiritual growth. It requires constant reflexivity as an ongoing process. And then rather than just accepting the attachment, so recognizing it as one thing, rather than just accepting it and saying, oh, it must be Krishna's arrangement, we pray to Krishna to have strength in following the process of devotional service, which is the sure way of purification. Regular attendance in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, Shinvatam Svakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridyantastohya Badrani, Vidunoti Suhrit Satam. It will cut through the knot of material attachment, Sukadeva Goswami says. Association with Vaishnavas, chanting the holy name. This is the steady and true process of bhakti. So today we've been discussing 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, this chapter 49, 2 verses spoken by Akrura, 3 verses spoken in response by Dhritarashtra. We have been given some good guidance. Well, one thing we can learn is the importance of seeking good guidance and good counsel, wise counsel. Akrura's role as a trusted advisor to the king highlights the importance of good counsel. When we can't see, good counsel can provide illumination. It can help us to see what we otherwise don't see. We can see, we've also learned today of the consequences of ignorance, attachment, and selfishness. Akrura has warned against that. And then in Dhritarashtra's response, we see the struggle with attachment and how when we are attached, even if we have good knowledge, it can be difficult to apply. Even though we know the consequences of eating that last bit of cake or staying up those extra hours for our next day. We know the consequences. We know it's not right for us, but when there's attachment, it's difficult. And so we need to apply ourselves to a process. Making the excuse doesn't help. It must be Krishna's desire. We apply ourselves to the process with humility, the process of devotional service. Okay, so I'll conclude there for any reflections, questions, or comments. I see some reflections in the chat as well, but I'll start by opening the mic for anyone who would like to
Can you stop sharing the screen so we can see who's talking?
Oh yeah, was I sharing my screen the whole time? I apologize for that.
That's all right.
Adi Purusha Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, brilliant, brilliant class. My goodness, you really brought it, and you brought it home that we always have the option in this predicament, as if we're in Dhritarashtra's shoes, to turn to Krishna, and that there's a power higher that can help us, even if we're completely buried with bad habits. And then, if we were talking a lot just now about what if we're like in Dhritarashtra's shoes and we know what's right and we hear what's right, but we can't do it. And then the other end of it is being in the shoes of the person in knowledge, the adult in the room, who's reaching out to somebody who can't hear. We've had a few questions recently, Dhamana Priya Mataji and a few other people have said, well, what if you have somebody and you're trying to talk to them and they just don't listen and they can't hear and they're not so open to receive, and how do you deal with that, you know? And we look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bible, we can always tell somebody a story. We may have a philosophical principle and a logical explanation, but when you tell a story, the principles are embedded in the story, and nobody can argue with the story. So we had a very interesting story. I'm going to try to do this really quickly. I had a friend called Legatuda. Legatuda, my grandmother used to say, Legatuda means one who lags to take up the truth. You know, in other words, doesn't follow good advice, you know. Paul Legatuda. So Legatuda and I, we got this apartment in an old wooden building. This is the story. And we got the fourth floor apartment. There were one apartment on each floor. And the night we moved in, we had some friends on the second floor, and they decided to give us a little house welcome. What do you call it when you first move in? Housewarming or whatever, a little party. So these are old hippie days in 1972. We were smoking hashish with little black opium balls. Smoking hashish and opium, and then we went up to go take rest. So this is the story. In the middle of the night, you know, the point is that sometimes somebody's speaking something important, and like the devotees speak to the conditioned soul, but they can't hear it. So we were sleeping and I heard this terrible screaming. And I ran down to the second floor and my friends came bashing out of their apartment, just with their underwear on. One of them was holding the cat. The cat had her claws right in my friend's chest, but he didn't care because right behind them, there was a wall of flames. The building was burning down. And they left all their clothes, all their musical instruments, everything is running out. So there's a fire. So I started running out with them, and I realized, I went up to the third floor, banged on the door, wake up the people, went up to the fourth floor, called my friend, went running out, bang on the first floor. We get outside and there's flames coming out of all the windows in the building, and the electricity went out. And my friend Paul, like a tutor, he didn't come out. And I tried to go back in, everybody was tearing my shirt off. Don't go in there, don't go in. I got it, my friend is in there. I went in, it was so burning, I had to run out. Then I run back in, up to the second floor, third floor, fourth. I get to the fourth floor, and by the light of the flames, I could see through the living room to his bedroom. He's laying on the bed. Didn't even get up. So this is the flash, what do you call it? Hold this frame. I'm running in there screaming, Lagatuna! And he's laying on the bed, and he says to me, man, what is your problem? Two people in the same room, one is saying something of urgency. It's just like a devotee is trying to call people out, not just to tell them that, hey, you know, the ship is sinking, we've got to do something, the building's on fire, we've got to get out. And the other person, people who just say, I'm good. You've seen that with the book distributor, I'm good. They don't want to hear it. They don't even want to listen, even though you know that they really should pay attention to this. So we went flying down to the smoke. The whole third floor to fourth floor was like a big packed with smoke from floor to ceiling, down through the second floor, through the flames, through the first floor, threw ourselves in the snow, coughing, black face, eyes burning and tearing, and we look back and the whole building just burnt down, just like a piece of paper. And when the firemen came, there was nothing left. There was a bathtub hanging from the second floor, but there was just burnt, But that incident where I'm screaming desperately, calling out to him, listen, get up. And he's, man, what is your problem? Like that. So we have that. Sometimes the shoe is on the other foot. We're not just like Dhritarashtra, and we're not taking the good advice, but we may be in our mission. Our whole life is trying to. We got this message. We're trying to give it to others, and a lot of people aren't ready to hear it. But we have to keep trying, and stories help. That's the point. If we can't just tell philosophy, but Prabhupada said example is higher than precept. So when you tell somebody a story, and the message is embedded in the story, sometimes it helps to reach them, and it lasts a little deeper into their understanding. Anyway,
The story of Lagatuda.
Lagatuda.
Lagatuda. The story of Lagatuda. That's sounds like a Bhagavatam pastime. Lagatuda Maharaj.
Krishna arranges these things for us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Haripurush Prabhu. Yeah, Bhagavatam is all stories. Okay, Vanisha has a hand raised.
Hare Krishna, good morning. Thank you so much for the class. I always look forward to your classes. Hard to follow that story, but I have a very simple question, I think, just on the meaning of the word kama and lust. And if you could explain, like I understand that it's, obviously much more about attachment and not just, lust in the sense that we use it more in the West. But in particular, how does it relate to the relationship with his sons? Like, is it attachment to the familial? Like, how does the kama come into play in that relationship? If you could explain. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, the question being asked relates to kama, lust, or sometimes we say desire. And how does that relate to attachment? And Manisha, I think I heard you say about family attachment.
Yeah, with his sons in particular in this instance, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's natural for parents to have affection for all of us to have affection for our family, and for parents to have affection for their children. That is right, and sometimes we'll take scripture as well as an excuse for not treating family properly because, oh, this is an illusion. I have to reject my family. And that's also a misunderstanding, because every being is Krishna's part and parcel. Every being on earth is Krishna's child, son or daughter. And so we have, not just for our own family, we have our duty to respect all beings as part and parcel of Krishna. In relation to our family, then they're given to us by Krishna. And so there's a duty to serve them as parents, or as children serving their parents, as a spouse, so yeah, those relationships they're given to us by Krishna, and with those relationships come responsibility. And part of that responsibility, so to speak, is to show affection and to express love and to make sacrifice. That love is expressed through sacrifice. So those are all part of the service of being in the world as a devotee. It involves fulfilling social family responsibilities as long as we have these bodies, and then they're the eternal responsibilities of the soul. Where it becomes a problem is when attachment clouds our judgment and our ability to do what is right and just. And in the case of Dhritarashtra, he's denying, well, he's condoning his sons in their efforts to assassinate their cousins, who are also under his care, but they are political rivals. They have a legitimate claim or right to the throne, and so they're trying to snuff them out. They're trying to get them out of the way by killing them, and or just treating them badly in general. Aside from the assassination attempts, they're being treated very poorly, and they're in a position of dependence, living in the palace or living in the home of their uncle after their father's passing. And so attachment here is a problem. So everything in its place, right? Everything in the proper balance. In this instance, Dhritarashtra's attachment is a problem because his affection is so great, his attachment is so great towards his son that he can't intervene. He can't say, this is wrong, don't do it. So as a parent, Venetia, you have to be able to tell your sons, your children, when they misbehave, even though your affection may not want to see them suffer or to cry, but you have to be able to tell them, no, that's wrong. You have to learn what's right, and you have to learn what it means to be selfish and selfless, and to be a good person, a good human being, at least in this world. And by being strong as a parent and actually addressing those misbehaviors when they come up, to teach your children, you save them a lot of pain and heartache in the future. Well, that's your strength. Dhritarashtra doesn't have it. So he's giving in to Duryodhana, allowing Duryodhana to commit harm to others. And in doing so, he's also sealing Duryodhana's fate and the fate of his kingdom. So there's just gross violation, dereliction of duty here as a father, but also as a king and a ruler. And his attachment is so great, and his spirit is so weak, that he's unable to do what's right by himself as a king, by himself as a father, by his son, and what's best for him long term. So we see here how attachment or lust. So the lust here then would be at a subtle level, in the sense of lust is a desire to possess or to have. And he wants the affections of Duryodhana. He wants Duryodhana to love him, I guess. And so he gives in to Duryodhana's whims and his bad behavior without standing up to him and teaching him what's right. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Shri Prahlad Prabhu, we had a discussion yesterday in class about Krishna wanting us to be independent thinkers.
Mm.
So in bhakti, how does that work? Do we just do what the guru says? Do we just do what Krishna says? Or Krishna wants us to think and take responsibilities and risks and make choices and bear the consequences? How does that work in bhakti?
Yeah, there's a very surprising statement in one of Prabhupada's classes where he says, I have done 10 times more than my Guru Maharaj. It sounds quite arrogant. Like, I have done 10 times. My Guru Maharaj, he preached across America. My Guru Maharaj preached across India. I have preached across America and the world. And then he says, so it sounds a little arrogant. Then he says to his disciples, he says, you are American boys and girls. You must do 10 times more than me. Otherwise, what is the point of your being American? So he's challenging his disciples. I did more than my Guru Maharaj. My Guru Maharaj said, preach in English. I brought Krishna consciousness all across the world. You do more than me. And to do more than the Guru with humility. Prabhupada, he has utmost humility towards his spiritual master. But I'm giving this example because it is quite surprising how he says it. You do more than me means you understand my teaching, you understand my idea, you understand my desire, and then use your intelligence how to fulfill it, how to apply it. So yes, in the very beginning, then we follow the instruction quite literally, because we still need to understand the mood and of the spiritual master and their mission. The mature disciple needs to be able to understand that and apply it. Tina has his hand, maybe after the
Okay. Shri Shri Radha Muralidhar ki jai. Shri Guru Chandra ki jai. Shri Prahlad Prabhu ki jai. You wanted to finish answering the question, or you want to go to the questions in the chat, comments in the
Yeah,
chat?
there's also Bhima that has his hand raised as well.
Okay. So welcome to the Afterglow, everybody. Let's do it. Bhima? Gloves are off. Okay. Come at us, Bhima Prabhu.
Haribol. Can you
Jai
hear
Ho.
me?
We can. Yeah,
Jai Ho, Prabhu.
there.
And very, very nice to hear your class. I just wanted to very quickly say that the last point that you made is particularly poignant in the sense that we have this responsibility. Adi loves to tell the story, which is a wonderful story, of course, where Prabhupada turned to him and, said to him, I want you to do what I can't do, go where I couldn't go. And which is, of course, where did Prabhupada didn't go? He went everywhere.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada said, into the future. So
Right.
we are, we really are given this baton in this relay race of exemplifying being examples, being precepts, having precepts, knowing the stories, living the story of this Krishna consciousness, which is most aptly expressed in our joy, in our joy of being a part of Krishna consciousness. So always make sure that those around us may hear what we say, but they're, including our children, they're more looking at what we're doing and how we're acting. So I just wanted to say that we have that choice into the future of carrying the baton and carrying the responsibility of representing in the house.
Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that reminder. Wonderful.
There's comments in the chat, Sripalad Prabhu. So I'm going to read. Lilia says, but if Krishna knows past, present, and future, would he have chosen another king to be born, to have taken Dhritarashtra's place? I'm sure Krishna knew that Dhritarashtra would act in that way towards his sons.
So, yeah, good question. So the question you're asking, Lilia, is about free will and predestination and how do they work. And it is a interesting tangle, how these can work together. What we're doing now is we're enacting our free will, but it is based on already decisions made in the past. We have this body, we have this mind, we have this situation. So that's set. But then within this, what's set, we can still make choices. And so those choices are creating our next destiny, or they become our next set point in which we have a limited free will to make choices. And so it's a complicated entanglement. How much is set? How much free will we have? So in relation to Dhritarashtra, he is the person that all of or the collective karmas of the people of that time has brought to them. And within that, like all of us right now, our collective previous choices, our collective karmas have brought us to this moment. Things are set. They are the way they are. We have this particular time in history, but things are but we still have free will here, but it is limited by the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And so is the case with Dhritarashtra. Choices he made, choices others have made, have brought things to that moment. Still within that, we do have choice available to us. Yeah, great question.
Thank you. Raghunath Prabhu often says, we are on the plane, the destination is set, but what we do on the plane, that's up to us. We can go smoke and, get arrested upon landing, or we can just behave nicely and read the book or tell somebody about Krishna.
Very good. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very well.
I imagine Srila Prabhupada travels into the future and then sees this man wearing a hat, beard, glasses, riding a horse, and talking Bhagavatam.
Okay.
And we know the shlokas. Srila Prabhupada will be very pleased. Prabhu. Yeah. Okay, there's one more comment in the chat. Yogi Media Manuj says, do as he says. Only time we don't do as he says is when it goes against Dharma. So the question is it that Dharma operates within Krishna or Krishna functions within Dharma? And what's higher? Or maybe it's the same thing?
Okay, do as he says. Only time we don't do as he says is when it goes against his Dharma. Would Krishna give an instruction that goes against his Dharma? Yeah, good question. Well, he tells us, I guess where Yogi is getting this from is when Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Abandon all dharmas and just surrender unto me. Krishna is the supreme Dharma. Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam. You are the supreme person, you are the supreme religion, you are the supreme destination. So he is the supreme Dharma. But Dharma has a hierarchy. There are eternal dharmas and there are naimitika dharmas. There are temporary dharmas. The temporary dharmas relate to a particular time, place, and circumstance of our bodies in a given time. The eternal dharmas relate to the soul. And sometimes they might appear to conflict. So what are some examples of the temporary dharmas? The temporary dharmas relate to the body, so varna and ashram. As a grihasta, it is your dharma, your duty, to serve your family, to live with the family, to work or to perform duties in relation to the family. That is your dharma as a grihasta. It is not the dharma for a sannyasi to do that. If a sannyasi were living with family, working, earning, supporting, we would say, oh, you're not a sannyasi. You are broken. You have violated your sannyas dharma. And so these are temporary dharmas. The dharmas of a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, they relate to a particular stage in life. The early brahmachari, their particular dharmas, and the dharmas for the grihastha and so on, they change. And similarly, there are dharmas for the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. They diverge. Who can accept charity, who can teach, who can, and so on and so forth. They vary according to, so in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna wants to live by begging rather than fight the war. And Krishna says, no, you are a Kshatriya. Your dharma is to fight. Someone else's dharma is to live as a sage in a monastery. So understanding the intricacies of dharma can be complex. What is my dharma in this moment for my body and mind? So my temporary dharma in this moment. But the dharma that is eternal is to serve Krishna, to love Krishna. Jiver svarupahoy Krishna nityadas. Whether you are a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, whether you are a brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, sudra, whatever your stage in life, whatever your position in life, your eternal duty, the duty of your soul, is to hear about Krishna, to remember Krishna, to glorify Krishna, to engage in devotional service. So that's called Sanatana Dharma. Bhakti Yoga is Sanatana Dharma. So then when we say that Dharma might go against Krishna, that could be the instance where, for example, Vibhishan, he is the brother of Ravana. So his dharma as a brother, younger brother, is to follow his elder brother. But his elder brother is the greatest demon the world has ever known. So rather than follow his elder brother, he surrenders to Ram. In one sense, he's broken the dharma of following the brother, yeah? But there's a higher dharma. The higher dharma is to serve Ram, to serve Krishna. And so there are times when we must understand dharma in a hierarchy. What is the higher dharma here? What is the lower dharma? One last quick example, because I know we're quite over time. One that's given in ethics classes is that there's a knock at the door. You're hiding a Jewish a Jewish family during World War II in Paris, and there's a knock at the door, and the Stasi are there, the Nazi police, and they say, have you seen this family? They show you a photo. Do you tell the truth or do you lie? What's the dharma? What's the dharma? Generally, we say telling truth always is a moral duty. But in this instance, you have to lie, because saving life is a higher principle, a higher dharma than telling truth to a murderer, right? Krishna actually there's a similar story in the Mahabharata. So understanding which dharma to apply in a given circumstances, that can be complex and it takes maturity. That's why we have a lifetime of ethical training and discipline in dharma, so that when we come to these moments, our heart will also be able to tell us, yeah, this is the right thing for me to do right now. Or if our heart is like Dhritarashtra's and we shouldn't listen to it, then we have a Kura to tell us, this is what you should do in this moment. This is the dharma that you need to apply. Great question. A little bit of a long answer, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Prahlad Prabhu. So, dear devotees, see how fortunate we are that we have Sri Prahlad Prabhu available to answer our questions in such a bona fide and profound and digestible way. Thank you, Shripalat Prabhu. Thank
It's an
you.
honor to be
Wonderful
here.
class.
Hare Krishna. Shipralad Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Sundaranandaji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Do you still have time? I know we're past. Do you still have time for something real quick?
Just quickly.
Okay, yeah, Prabhu. Follow up to the same question, the same topic. So what if in that example you quoted, the Gestapo coming at the door and then the person hiding? What if they say, if we find someone, then you will get shot? So to take it a step further, what do you do then if your life is in danger?
Yeah.
Which probably it was, right? In reality, that's probably how it worked.
So those are the complexities, and it's good that you're thinking in those terms. It's not simple. That's throughout the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, there are these conversations. What is what is Dharma in this moment? Because it's not cut and clear and
Hold
dry.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bhima Prabhu knows what to
Bhima
do.
wants to say, you sacrifice.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Jesus said, no higher, no greater love than a man who's willing to give his life for his brother. So, this is the big thing that I feel like in this lesson in the Bhagavatam, you have those that are very, very much attached to the story that is this material life, their wealth, their position, their relatives, and then those who are otherwise know what is really happening here. That this is sort of a dramatic school ground where you have to learn your lessons, and if you don't learn them, you have to come back around again and take that lesson again. First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth, and you get held back if you keep up the nonsense in this world, because Krishna doesn't want fools and rascals in Goloka. So until we become more like Arjun, more like Yudhisthira, more like the denizens of Vrindavan, then we have moved along and have become like Krishna. God's amongst Krishna, that he can feel like he can play with. And at least this is my understanding. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima. That is a higher understanding. Over to you, Ananda.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Shripalat Prabhu, wonderful class. Thank you for your association and your wisdom. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone on this call. We love you. It was nice seeing you, spending the time with you. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. As always, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Love you all. Hare Bol. Have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.